The Shire is quiet tonight. Soft light glows from round windows, and a gentle breeze moves through the rolling hills. Welcome to Nightfall Stories. Tonight, we walk beside Frodo, along familiar paths and quiet roads, where the world feels safe and time slows down. Lanterns flicker softly in the distance. The grass sways beneath the moonlight, and every step feels calm and unhurried. There is no danger here, no distant shadows, only the peaceful rhythm of a night in the Shire. So find a comfortable position, let your thoughts drift, and allow this gentle journey to guide you into rest. And if you enjoy these quiet stories, consider subscribing to Nightfall Stories, where more peaceful nights await. Now, let us begin. Evening came softly to the Shire. The last light of the sun rested gently upon the rolling hills, turning the green slopes to gold before slowly fading into the quiet blue of early night. Smoke rose in thin, peaceful lines from the chimneys of hobbit holes, drifting lazily into the still air. At the top of the hill, round and well-kept, stood Bag End. Its door, painted a deep and familiar green, was closed, but not for long. It opened quietly, and Frodo Baggins stepped out into the evening. He paused for a moment upon the small path before his door, not because he had somewhere urgent to go, but because there was no hurry at all. The air was warm, soft, carrying with it the faint scent of grass and distant cooking fires. Frodo looked out across the hill. Below, Hobbiton lay peaceful and calm. Small lights had begun to appear in windows, glowing gently against the gathering dusk. Voices drifted faintly through the air. Laughter, quiet conversation, the simple sounds of hobbit life settling into the evening. He adjusted his cloak lightly around his shoulders, not from cold, but from habit. The path leading down from Bag End curved gently along the hill, bordered by low grass and small stones worn smooth by many passing feet. Frodo stepped onto it. His footsteps made almost no sound. The earth was soft, familiar. Each turn of the path known to him without thought. He had walked this way many times before, yet tonight it felt different. Not in change, but in awareness, as though the quiet of the evening invited him to notice things more deeply. The sky above shifted slowly toward night. The first star appeared, then another. Faint, distant, but steady. Frodo continued down the path, passing small gardens where flowers closed gently for the night. Their colors bright in the day, now softened into quiet shades beneath the dimming light. A small gate stood open along the way. Beyond it, a narrow path led toward another hobbit hole, its round windows glowing warmly from within. Frodo glanced toward it. He could hear voices inside, soft, comfortable, the kind of sound that belonged to places untouched by worry. He did not stop. There would be time for visits another day. Tonight was for walking, for quiet, for the simple act of moving through the Shire as it settled into rest. The path curved again. The hill sloped gently downward. The lights of Hobbiton grew nearer, Lanterns had been lit along some of the paths now, their glow soft and golden, guiding the way without breaking the calm of the night. Frodo walked on, slowly, without thought of where the path would end, only that it would lead somewhere familiar, somewhere quiet, somewhere that belonged. And as the last light of day faded completely and the Shire entered fully into the peace of night, Frodo continued his gentle walk into the quiet heart of home. The path carried Frodo Baggins gently down into the heart of Hobbiton, where the evening had settled into a calm and familiar rhythm. Lanterns now glowed beside many doors. Their light was soft and golden, spilling out across small garden paths and low fences, touching the grass with a gentle warmth that did not disturb the quiet of the night. Frodo walked slowly between the hobbit holes. Each one was known to him, not by name alone, but by memory. There was a small green door to his left, set slightly deeper into the hill than the others. Its garden was full of herbs, their scent faintly carried through the air even in the cooling night. Farther along, a round window shone brighter than the rest. Inside, shadows moved across the curtains, someone still awake, perhaps sharing a late meal or telling stories by the fire. Frodo did not pause, but he listened. The voices were soft, comfortable, carried only a short distance before fading back into the stillness. The path beneath his feet was well worn, smooth, shaped by years of quiet use. It curved gently between the homes, never straight, never hurried, always following the natural shape of the land. A small heart stood to one side of the road, empty now, left where it had been used earlier in the day. Its wooden frame rested quietly, casting a long shadow in the lantern light. Frodo passed it without thought. Such things were part of the Shire, unremarkable, yet comforting in their familiarity. A soft breeze moved through the grass. It carried the faint sound of crickets beginning their nightly song. The rhythm was gentle, unchanging, blending with the quiet life of the village. Frodo reached a small crossing where two paths met. One led deeper into Hobbiton, the other curved away toward the open fields. He paused there, not from uncertainty, but from simple reflection. Both ways were known. Both would lead him somewhere peaceful. For a moment, he stood still. The lantern nearby flickered softly. The voices from distant homes rose and fell. The stars above grew clearer, shining now in greater number across the dark sky. Frodo looked upward briefly, then lowered his gaze again. The night was calm, untroubled. Far from the concerns of the wider world, here there was only the present, the quiet, the steady passing of time. He chose the path that led onward through the village. His steps remained slow, measured, unhurried. He passed beneath a low tree whose branches stretched gently over the road. Its leaves whispered faintly as the breeze touched them, their movement soft and rhythmic. Beyond it, the path widened slightly. A small open space lay ahead, where a bench had been placed near the side of the road. It was empty now, though it had likely been used earlier in the evening by those who wished to sit and watch the fading light. Frodo glanced at it, then continued on. There was no need to stop. The walk itself was enough. The village grew quieter as he moved farther along. More doors closed, more lights dimmed. The sounds of voices faded until only the soft hum of the night remained. The path began to rise again, leading gently upward toward the edge of Hobbiton. Behind him, the village rested. Before him, the open land awaited, and Frodo walked on, carrying with him the quiet warmth of the Shire into the deeper calm of the night. The path grew quieter as Frodo Baggins moved farther from the center of Hobbiton. Yet the warmth of the village did not fade all at once. It lingered, in light, in sound, in memory. Behind him, the gentle glow of lanterns still shone along the curved paths, marking doorways and garden gates with small circles of gold against the deepening night. Though he no longer walked directly among them, their presence remained like quiet stars resting upon the hills. From time to time, a voice drifted through the still air, faint, distant, carried lightly from one home to another. A laugh, a short exchange, the closing words of a story being told before sleep. None of it clear, none of it meant to be heard beyond its place. And yet, it reached him, softened by distance, blending into the calm of the night. Frodo walked on. The path beneath his feet was now less worn, though still familiar. Grass grew closer along its edges, brushing lightly against his steps as he passed. A lantern stood alone beside the road, set upon a simple wooden post. Its light flickered gently, moved by the faintest breath of wind. Frodo slowed as he came near it. For a moment he paused, not to rest, but to observe. The small flame within the glass moved softly, steady despite its quiet motion. It gave just enough light to mark the path without pushing back the darkness beyond. He placed a hand lightly upon the post. The wood was smooth, warmed slightly by the lantern above. Then, after a moment, he continued on. The voices grew fewer now, more distant, until they became no more than memory carried in the air. The Shire was settling. Doors closed, fires dimmed, the night deepened. Above, the sky had grown clear and full. Stars shone in quiet abundance, scattered across the dark expanse, in patterns both known and forgotten. Their light, though distant, seemed nearer here, unobstructed by walls or towers. Frodo looked up again, longer this time. There was something in the stars that always called to quiet thought, not with urgency, but with presence. He lowered his gaze slowly. The path ahead curved gently toward the open land beyond Hobbiton. The last of the lanterns lay behind him now. Only the natural light of the stars remained. The air had cooled slightly, not cold, but fresh, carrying with it the faint scent of fields and distant water. The sounds of the village had nearly faded completely. Only the soft rhythm of crickets remained, and the occasional whisper of wind through the grass. Frodo walked on. The quiet deepened around him, not empty, but full of gentle stillness, the kind that asked nothing, the kind that allowed the mind to rest. Behind him, Hobbiton slept. Before him, the wide fields of the Shire awaited beneath the open sky, and between the two, on a quiet path beneath the stars, Frodo continued his walk. Beyond the last quiet homes of Hobbiton, the land opened gently into the wide fields of the Shire. The path softened beneath Frodo Baggins's feet, becoming less defined as it wound through grass that moved slowly in the night air. There were no lanterns here, only the stars. Their light spread faintly across the land, touching the tops of the fields and the gentle rise of the hills. It was not enough to reveal every detail, but enough to guide without effort. Frodo walked onward. The village lay behind him now. Its warmth remained in memory, but its sounds had faded into stillness. Here, there was only the open land and the quiet. The fields stretched in soft lines across the hills, their shapes revealed only by the way the starlight rested upon them. The grass moved in slow waves as the wind passed, creating a rhythm that seemed to belong to the land itself. Frodo slowed. There was no path to follow closely now, only direction, only the gentle understanding of where to go. He stepped off the worn track, walking instead through the grass itself. It brushed lightly against his legs, soft, untroubled. The air felt wider here, freer. The sky above stretched without interruption, filled with stars that shone more clearly than they had within the village. Some were bright and steady, others faint and distant, yet all together they formed a quiet pattern across the night. Frodo looked upward. For a time, he stood still. The fields around him moved gently. The wind passed. The world remained calm. He did not think of far places, nor of distant roads, only of the moment, the simple presence of the night. After a while, he continued walking. The land rose slightly beneath his feet, leading him toward a low hill where the grass grew a little shorter and the ground more firm. At the top, he paused again. From there, he could see farther. The outline of Hobbiton lay faint behind him, marked only by the softest glow of a few remaining lights. Ahead, the land stretched into darkness, peaceful, unbroken. The wind moved again. Carrying with it the faint scent of water from somewhere beyond sight, perhaps a small stream, or a quiet river moving through the fields. Frodo listened, but the sound did not reach him. Only the feeling of it, the sense that the land extended far beyond what could be seen. He sat for a moment upon the grass, not out of weariness, but because the stillness invited it. The ground was cool, the night gentle. There was nothing to disturb the calm. No sudden sound, no movement beyond the slow rhythm of the fields and the distant, steady sky. Time passed, quietly, without measure. Then, slowly, Frodo rose again. The walk was not yet finished. The night still held more to offer. And so he stepped forward once more, leaving the hill behind as he moved deeper into the quiet fields beneath the stars. The path though faint among the fields of the Shire, seemed to guide Frodo Baggins toward a familiar rise in the land. It was not high, nor steep, but it stood slightly apart from the surrounding hills, its shape known to those who had walked these fields many times before. At its crest stood a tree, old, quiet, unchanged. Frodo approached slowly. The grass grew shorter as the ground rose, and the earth beneath his feet felt firmer, as though many seasons had passed over this place without disturbance. The tree came into clearer view. Its trunk was wide, marked with the gentle lines of long years. The bark was rough in places, smooth in others, shaped not by any hand, but by time and weather. Its branches reached outward in calm, steady forms, not tangled, not wild, but balanced, as though it had grown with patience, without haste, without need. The leaves moved softly in the night breeze. Her sound was quiet, familiar. Frodo reached the top of the hill. He paused beside the tree. There was no need to go further. This place was enough. He rested a hand lightly against the trunk. The wood was cool, steady, unmoving. The tree had stood here longer than he had lived. Longer, perhaps, than many who now walk the paths of the Shire. It had seen many evenings like this, many quiet nights, many small lives passing gently beneath its branches. Frodo did not sit at once. He stood there for a moment, looking out across the land. The field stretched softly in all directions, touched by the faint light of the stars. The outline of distant hills lay quiet against the horizon. Behind him, far off, the last dim lights of Hobbiton could still be seen, small, warm, distant. He turned slightly, then, slowly, he sat beneath the tree. The ground was firm but not hard, the grass soft around him. The branches above offered no shelter from the sky, but a quiet presence, as though the tree itself watched over the hill in its own silent way. The wind moved again, soft, carrying with it the gentle sounds of the night. The faint rhythm of the fields, the distant call of something unseen, nothing sharp, nothing sudden. Only the steady continuation of the world as it passed through the quiet hours. Frodo leaned back slightly, resting against the trunk. His eyes lifted toward the sky. The stars remained unchanged, endless. There was no need for thought, no need for direction. The moment held everything it needed. The calm, the stillness, the quiet understanding that this place, simple, unremarkable, and far from the wider world, was enough. Time passed, slowly, gently, as it always did in the Shire. Beneath the old tree upon the hill, Frodo remained for a while longer, resting in the quiet of the night. The night deepened around Frodo Baggins, settling fully over the quiet hills of the Shire. The wind, which had moved softly through the leaves, grew gentler still, until even its faint motion became difficult to notice. The grass no longer swayed in waves, but rested in a calm that felt complete. The world had not stopped. But it had quieted deeply. Frodo remained seated against the trunk, his presence light, his breathing slow and even. There was no need to move, no need to think. The night held everything in place. The sounds of earlier hours had faded almost entirely. No distant voices reached this hill now. No lantern light touched the ground. Only the faint, steady glow of the stars remained above. Laugh, trick, ass, owl. They shone clearly in the open sky, undisturbed as the light, soft but constant. It did not brighten the land, it simply rested upon it. Frodo looked upward for a time, then closed his eyes, and the darkness behind them was not different from the night itself. It carried the same calm, the same stillness, the same quiet presence that filled the land. The old tree stood unmoving behind him, its roots deep in the earth, its branches stretching outward without strain. It had no need to shift, no need to change. It simply remained. The night air cooled slightly, not enough to disturb, only enough to remind that time was passing. Somewhere far off, a single sound drifted across the fields, soft, barely there, the call of a distant night bird. It did not repeat, it did not echo. It simply existed and then was gone. The silence returned, deeper now, more complete. Frodo's breathing slowed further. His thoughts, if they had been present at all, had softened into something quieter. The concerns of the day did not reach here, nor did any thought of what lay beyond the Shire. There was only this: the tree, the night, unbroken, enduring. The earth beneath him held a gentle warmth, slowly fading as the hours passed. The grass carried a faint coolness, brushing lightly against his hands where they rested. Everything was in balance. Nothing moved without reason. Nothing disturbed the calm. The stars continued their slow passage across the sky, unseen in motion, yet constant in presence. Time no longer felt measured. Moments did not pass. They simply existed. And within that quiet existence, the world rested. Frodo remained, still, untroubled, part of the same calm that stretched across the fields and into the distant hills. The deep night held him there, gently, without demand, without change. And for a while longer, nothing stirred, and nothing needed to. For a long while, the night remained unchanged. The deep stillness rested gently over the hills of the Shire, and beneath the old tree, Frodo Baggins remained quiet and unmoving, as though the world itself had paused. But slowly, almost without notice, the night began to turn. Far beyond the eastern hills, where the land met the unseen edge of the sky, a faint light began to gather. It was not yet dawn, only the softest change. The darkness did not lift, it softened. The stars above grew dimmer, one by one fading into the pale gray that spread gently across the horizon. Their light did not vanish suddenly, but withdrew slowly, as though making way for what was to come. The air shifted, not warmer, but lighter. The deep stillness of the night eased, becoming something quieter and more open. Frodo stirred slightly, not waking fully, only becoming aware. The earth beneath him felt different now. The faint coolness of the night had begun to lift, replaced by the first touch of morning. He opened his eyes. The sky above the hill was no longer deep with stars, but softened with early light. The shapes of the land became clearer. The gentle slopes of the fields, the quiet outline of distant trees, the familiar curves of the hills. The old tree stood unchanged, its branches still, its presence steady, as it had been through the night, as it would remain through the day. Frodo rose slowly. There was no haste in the movement. The moment allowed for stillness even as it changed. He stood beside the tree and looked out across the land. The fields of the Shire stretched before him, now touched by the first true light of morning. The grass carried a faint glow, and the distant paths became visible once more. Somewhere far away, a bird called. Soft, clear. Then another answered. The sound spread slowly across the land, not loud, not sudden, but steady, as though the world itself was waking in gentle rhythm. The night had passed, without disturbance, without change, only by quiet turning. Frodo drew a slow breath. The air was fresh, clean, filled with the calm of a new day not yet begun. He turned from the hill. The path back toward Hobbiton lay before him, faint but familiar. The village itself was still quiet, though a few early lights had begun to appear once more in distant windows. Life would return. The day would continue, as it always had, as it always would. Frodo stepped forward. The grass moved softly beneath his feet. The hill remained behind him. The tree stood still, and as he walked, the morning light grew slowly across the land, carrying with it the same quiet peace that had filled the night. And so the Shire awakened, beneath a sky of gentle light, where quiet hills and winding paths remained unchanged, and where simple days followed peaceful nights, in a land far from shadow, where, for a while, all things could rest.